The billionaire's entire body stiffened when the young boy's words sliced through the peaceful garden air, cutting through the quiet like a truth nobody had prepared to hear. "Your daughter isn't blind. It's your wife," the boy said, trembling yet standing firm with a bravery that outshone his fear. The father's grip on the wheelchair tightened, and his carefully constructed world began to crumble, unraveling faster than he could comprehend. His daughter remained still, dark glasses shielding the eyes the doctors swore would never see again. Years of hospital visits, high-priced specialists, and sleepless nights spent praying for a miracle echoed in his mind like haunting reminders of unfulfilled hopes. Slowly, he leaned toward the boy, his anger quickly building, but his voice quivered as doubt and fear flooded in. Before we continue, tell us in the comments what time it is and where you are watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's get back to our story. How can you say that? The man whispered. But even in that harsh question, the bitterness of rage was absent, replaced by a mix of confusion, disbelief, and a new kind of pain. The boy didn't flinch. His words were steady, born from a life of struggle. "I saw her add something to the food," he said quietly, pointing toward the kitchen window of the mansion. The billionaire's breath hitched as flashes of unsettling memories rushed in, fragments of moments he had long ignored. His wife had always insisted on feeding their daughter herself, constantly repeating, "Only a mother knows what her child needs." For the first time in years, a wave of suspicion washed over the father's heart, a heart that had trusted love blindly, no questions asked. The garden around them felt colder, and as the father looked at his daughter, he wondered how many clues he had missed. Her small fingers reached out, instinctively searching for his voice, as doctors had explained was common for blind children. But today, there was an uncertainty to the movement. The boy, standing barefoot with torn clothes, held a truth in his hands that weighed more than all the billionaire's riches. "Why are you telling me this?" the father demanded, his eyes searching for deception in the boy's gaze, desperate to find a lie. "Because I understand pain," the boy answered softly. "And she's someone trapped in darkness that isn't meant for her." The simplicity of those words struck harder than any insult or business rival's taunt. The father's mind flooded with memories of his daughter's complaints, how the food made her dizzy, weak, and unusually exhausted. His wife had always dismissed it, blaming it on medication side effects, claiming that healing came with pain before true recovery. But now each excuse played out like pieces of a puzzle, falling into place to reveal a picture he never wanted to see. Guilt crept up on him, slow and relentless, a weight that squeezed his chest for trusting too easily, never stopping to ask the right questions. Money had always been his answer, solving problems in ways he could never have imagined. Yet now he realized it had never been the answer to the one problem quietly growing inside his own home. For the first time, he feared not losing his wealth, but losing the truth about the people he thought he knew best. Without a word, the father ordered his driver to take the boy with them, ignoring the stunned stares of the guards who had never seen anything like this. The car ride was thick with tension, the silence more deafening than any argument could have been. Every moment in the vehicle weighed down on him, each second more unbearable than the last. His daughter, oblivious to the world shifting around her, sat still, unaware that everything she knew was about to change. He couldn't take the uncertainty any longer. In a hushed voice, he called the family doctor, asking for private tests to be done on their daughter. "Don't tell her anything," he instructed, his heart racing as though he were orchestrating something criminal. The trust he had built with his wife over the years was cracking before his eyes, and each crack felt like a betrayal of their shared memories. If you've fallen in love with this story already, kindly smash that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories. Let's continue. The boy spoke again, his voice trembling as he described the day he had seen the woman by the kitchen window. She had looked around, terrified that someone might see her, he said, his words almost choking on the vivid memory. The father's mind raced back to that moment, the day blindness had been diagnosed so suddenly, so unexpectedly. Everything had unfolded in a blur, too fast for anyone to process. The doctors had relied on reports, none of which had been questioned. His wife had cried louder than he had ever heard, clutching their daughter like she had lost everything. Now he wondered if those tears had been from a different kind of fear, not for their daughter's pain, but for the truth that was waiting to be uncovered. At the private clinic, the tests began in quiet secrecy, while his wife believed he was handling urgent business in the city. The father watched through the glass, his heart thundering in his chest as the doctors examined what had never been examined before. Every passing minute felt like a sentence, guilt gnawing at him like a constant reminder of his failures. He thought about all the times he had chosen business deals over family dinners, times that now haunted him. Perhaps his absence had allowed the darkness to slip in unnoticed, taking root in the silence he had left behind. Outside, the boy waited, refusing money yet again, saying that truth wasn't something to be bought. Those words cut deeper than any accusation from enemies or business rivals ever could. At last, the doctor emerged, his face grave, but there was something in his eyes that didn't quite fit with the severity of the situation. "Her eyes are perfectly healthy," he said, each word hitting the father like a bolt of lightning. "There is no medical condition here that could explain permanent blindness," he added, his tone resolute. The father felt the ground beneath him vanish as the air in his lungs seemed to freeze. The doctor's next words cut deeper. "All signs point to long-term sedative use," he said gently. "Someone has been slowly dimming her world." The father gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands, his heart feeling heavier than the wealth he had spent his life accumulating. When he arrived home, his wife greeted him with a calm smile, unaware that the truth had already crossed the threshold before him. Their daughter was rushed straight to emergency care, where doctors began the delicate process of removing toxins from her fragile body. Hope and fear walked side by side down the sterile hospital corridors, where the constant beep of machines seemed like prayers being counted. When the police entered quietly behind the billionaire, his wife's face drained of color. At first, she denied everything, her tears flowing in a well-rehearsed pattern of grief, as if she had memorized this scene over time. But the officers discovered hidden medicine bottles tucked away in her personal drawer, locked beneath a pile of clothes. With quiet disappointment, one officer spoke, explaining that she had feared losing his affection and control over the family's emotional core. She wanted dependence, not distance. The father's heart shattered not just from the anger that surged within him, but from the crushing weight of his own neglect. What had begun as love had slowly warped into fear, and that fear had transformed into something far darker and unforgivable. As his daughter fought for her life in hospital bed, the father was left to face the truth he had failed to shield her from. Days passed within the sterile walls of the hospital, where the father refused to leave his daughter's side for even a moment, too consumed by the gravity of what he had allowed to happen. For the first time in years, business calls went unanswered, and the fear of lost money faded into the background. He found himself watching each breath his daughter took, as if simply being there could somehow make up for the years he had missed. The doctors gave him hope, saying recovery was possible, but they warned that only time and patience could heal her. One quiet morning, she blinked slowly, her gaze fixed on the window where sunlight touched her face. "Daddy, I see light," she whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile new hope. Tears, unfamiliar to him, slipped down his face, tears he hadn't shed, even when burying his father. He gently held her hand, repeating his apologies for not seeing the truth sooner. She didn't understand his guilt, only the joy of her world slowly becoming bright again. The poor boy came by, standing awkwardly at the door, unsure if he belonged. The billionaire pulled him into a tight hug, breaking down the wall of pride he had built over a lifetime. "You saved my child," he said, knowing there were no words that could repay what the boy had done. Months later, the mansion no longer felt heavy. Laughter began to replace the silence that once filled every room. His daughter walked carefully in the garden, sunlight streaming across eyes that had once been lost in darkness. Each step she took felt like a miracle her father would never take for granted again. Business meetings grew shorter, but family dinners stretched long into the evening, far surpassing any deal he had ever signed. Guilt had transformed him into a father who valued presence over profit and listening over pride. He openly shared his lesson, warning parents caught in the trap of work and ambition. "Children need time, not just things," he'd say, his voice firm with the weight of experience. The poor boy now thrived in a good school, visiting often, no longer a stranger but family. 2 lives had changed because one brave child chose courage over fear on an ordinary afternoon. The father often sat quietly, thinking how close he had come to losing everything that mattered most. Trust without attention can turn dangerous when silence is allowed to grow inside a home. Redemption began the day he chose to truly see his child, not just look at her. The father quietly established a foundation to help children whose struggles were overlooked or misunderstood at home. "Pain thrives in silence," he often said. "Too many children suffer because adults are too busy to see." Doctors rallied behind his cause, offering free tests so no child would lose their health due to misplaced trust. His daughter stood by him often, her bright eyes a constant reminder of why he started all. She forgave effortlessly, as children do, never holding his past mistakes against his now healing heart. The boy who once spoke the truth now called the mansion home. Laughter filled its halls, replacing the silence that had once lingered. What began as doubt had blossomed into a lesson that changed countless lives. The father realized that love, when given without attention, can quietly turn into something harmful, hidden behind good intentions. He shared his lesson with others. Being present is the greatest safeguard a child can have. Wealth may create walls of comfort, but only genuine care can provide true safety within a family. Every night, he thanked the moment that poor child chose to speak when fear could have kept him silent. Because sometimes salvation doesn't come through power, but through the brave voice of the unnoticed. If this story moved you, hit like and subscribe for more inspiring journeys. See you in the next one.